Hello friends, welcome to Inside Second Initiative. In today's video, we are going to discuss about a topic that is nuclear attack on Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. So this is the title of this today's video, and in this video the learning objectives are: first we'll discuss about why it is in use, obviously the context, then about this Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station, where it is located, then nuclear disasters. So what is the meaning of nuclear disaster and concerns related to nuclear disasters? After that, we will discuss about some of the international treaties and agreements related to nuclear disasters and the safety measures to prevent nuclear disaster. Then we will discuss about international regulations, framework for preventing nuclear disasters, and how these kind of regulations in India. Of course, on top of that, as a bonus, we will also discuss about some of the important nuclear power stations in India also. That map pointing also we will cover in this video. Now first, let's see the context. And this particular topic is related to IR Gender Studies paper 2. The context is Russia has demanded the Western countries to respond. Regarding what? Regarding the Ukraine strike on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station, which is controlled by the Russian forces. First, as an aspirant, you have to know where is this Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. Okay. Now, if a particular attack has happened on the nuclear power station, what is the result? That is nuclear damage or nuclear disaster may happens. What is a nuclear disaster? And what is the meaning of the contamination due to nuclear material? And we will also discuss about the exposure to nuclear material. What is the difference between these two? First, we will try to understand where is this Zaporizhzhia nuclear power station. Actually, this is the Ukraine map, and some of the important nuclear power stations in Ukraine, they are Rivno and Kemlinsky, Chernobyl, which is closed now after the nuclear disaster, South Ukraine nuclear power station, Zaporizhzhia. So Zaporizhzhia obviously in the south part of the Ukraine and very near to Crimea. You know that Crimea is previously occupied by the Russia. Because the Crimea annexation only, Russia was expelled out of the G8 and G8 became G7. Tell me guys, where is the G7 meeting is going to be happen this year? And so these are the important nuclear power station, and some of the important port cities are Mariupol and Odisha. These are the important port cities, and this is the Black Sea. You know that. So these are the nuclear power stations. Now let's see. So here Russia is claiming that this nuclear power station is attacked by this Ukraine forces, because this nuclear power station now is under the control of Russia, and Russia is claiming that it is attacked by Ukraine forces, and the Western countries have to respond on this particular issue. About the nuclear accidents, International Atomic Energy also, it was acknowledged that this is the first time like the nuclear power station targeted since 2022. This nuclear attack may endanger nuclear safety as well, according to International Atomic Energy Agency. Russian forces took control of this plant in 2022, shortly after the full-scale invasion of the Ukraine. Now it is completely under the control of Russian forces. Both Russia and Ukraine, they have repeatedly accused each other of the risking a nuclear accident by attacking the plant. Okay. So now Russia is claiming that Ukraine attacked this plant, and the Zaporizhzhia plant, like we discussed, it is present in the southern Ukraine, and it is the largest nuclear plant in Europe. This facility actually stopped generating power in 2022, but still it is supplied with power because nuclear power reactors still they are working and they have to be cooled down. They need constant supply of electricity to cool one of its reactors, because these reactors this particular reactor is in the state of hot conservation, meaning it is not fully offline. So it requires power supply. And the nuclear disaster. Nuclear disaster is all about the abnormal emission of either the radiation or the radioactive material. It may be due to the natural accident like earthquake we have seen in the Fukushima nuclear reactor, or it may be due to any nuclear attack. It leads to lethal effect on the individual, because when individual exposes to a large amount of the radioactivity, obviously they'll affect in terms of the genetics and in terms of the other ways also. Across the world, around 99 significant nuclear accident happened in nuclear power plants. Out of them, 57 accidents they occurred after the Chernobyl disaster, And out of all the nuclear disasters, around 57% of the nuclear accidents they occurred in USA. Here, one thing we have to remember regarding the nuclear safety only, the India-USA civil nuclear that agreement, it is under pending. Actually, India demanding that if America construct any nuclear power station in India, and American companies, they have to take the entire liability in case if there is any damage. So regarding that liability clause, because of that only, there is this civil nuclear agreement between America and USA. Still, it is pending from the implementation. Actually, this agreement initially proposed in 2005 and finally it was signed in 2008. This agreement popularly known as 123 agreement. It was signed between the George Bush and then Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Serious nuclear power plant accidents. Fukushima Daiichi nuclear disaster 2011, it is due to earthquake, Chernobyl disaster and 3 Mile Island accident and the SL1 accident. These are the nuclear disasters. If any nuclear power plant subjected to disaster, radiation will be dispersed from radioactive material and the radiation may affect the individual from outside way. Like the radioactive material, they may stick to the individual like individual's skin or cloth, that is known as contamination. And exposure means when a particular subject is exposed to the radiation waves, radiation, that is known as exposure. A person who is contaminated, they can decontaminate, but the exposure is very dangerous. Sometimes this exposure can be the external or internal. How the internal, the radioactive material, they cluster together, they form like a cloud, and this radioactive material, they may fall onto the ground and may it attach to the vegetables. From there, it may go to the inside of the individual. This may leads to the internal exposure. Actually, internal exposure is a very damaged thing. Okay, this cause long-term adverse reactions. Then concerns related to nuclear disasters. Radiation exposure, like we discussed, contamination of air, water and soil, and they may lead to further internal contamination. Psychological impact, displacement and evacuation, because people, they have to evacuate that area, and intergenerational impact, it may be impact in the next generations as well. Economic costs and challenges in disaster response as well. You know, when chemicals or radioactive material, when they expose it to humans, it impacts the next generation also. You might have watched these Hollywood movies, you know, like Wrong Turn or Terminator. There, you know, the people with mutations, they are born like that because they are subjected to certain kind of chemical waste. Okay, that is a true example of how the future generations also will be affected due to chemical pollution or radiation pollution. Next, safety measures to prevent nuclear disaster. There are regulatory frameworks, risk assessment before setting up of the nuclear power plant, engineering standards maintaining, safety systems and operational training. So these have to be set in place. Then international regulatory framework. Now we are going to see few international frameworks which are set up in place to prevent the nuclear disasters. One is the Convention on Nuclear Safety. It is legally binding. You have to watch out for this. It is legally binding, and it established fundamental safety principles and obligations for the safe operation of nuclear power plant. And the participating states, whichever the countries signed on this, they are required to submit their national reports on the implementation of the safety measures. That means up to which extent they are implementing the safety measures, they have to submit the reports, and their standards, they will be peer reviewed. That means they will be reviewed by other country experts, so that they will assess how much safety standards they are implementing. And the Joint Convention on the Safety of Spent Fuel Management and on the Safety of Radioactive Waste Management. This is about how a particular country is managing the nuclear waste. You know that when we use nuclear material in nuclear power plant, certain nuclear waste will be generated. How that nuclear waste is getting dealing. So that is about this particular convention. This convention addresses the safe management and disposal of the spent nuclear fuel and radioactive waste. And this is mainly aiming to prevent nuclear accidents due to the nuclear waste. and the participating states. They commit to implement safety measures throughout the entire life cycle of radioactive waste from the generation to disposal. Okay, they advocate mainly about the safe disposal of the nuclear waste. And the International Atomic Energy, this agency, it plays a very central role in promoting the nuclear safety worldwide through its safety standards and framing guidelines, imposing those guidelines, and technical assistance program. And even if you remember, when P5 countries, when they imposed certain sanctions on the Iran came to an agreement, that agreement popularly known as Iran nuclear deal. During the Iran nuclear deal also, this International Atomic Energy Agency, it enforced, it checked whether the Iran adhered to that particular deal or not. So IAEA having the authority to inspect the nuclear facilities of the country also. That thing you have to remember. This agency conducts safety reviews, assessment, peer reviews of the nuclear facilities to evaluate whether they are complying with the international standards or not. And one more convention. Convention on early notification of nuclear accident. That means when nuclear accident happens, how to notify them, what kind of precautions have to be taken, what kind of safety measures have to be put in place. It was adapted after Chernobyl nuclear disaster in 1986. It gives international framework for cooperation among the state parties. Regarding the regulation in India. In India, vast number of regulations are there regarding the nuclear safety. It starts with the nuclear power station to even regulating the mining of the nuclear material. So let's see. Number one is the Atomic Energy Act 1962. It regulates the establishment and utilization of nuclear facilities and the use of radioactive sources. Then Environment Protection Act 1986. It deals with the environment protection aspects that are governed according to this particular act. And according to the radiation protection rules in 1962, the regulations for radiation protection aspects, they are governed by this particular rules. Then safety aspects regarding the mining of certain substances, they are regulated by Mines Minerals Prescribed Substances Rules 1984. And the safe waste disposal is governed by Energy Safe Disposal of Radioactive Waste Rules 1987. So these are the various guidelines which are regulating the nuclear waste and nuclear power plants and protecting environment from nuclear damage or nuclear pollution. Now let's see map pointing related to nuclear power plants under operations in India. Clockwise, Narora Atomic Power Plant, UP, Madras Atomic Power Plant, Kudankulam Nuclear Power Plant. Tell me guys, this Kudankulam Nuclear Power Plant, it constructed with the assistance from which country? Then Kaiga Generation Station, which is in Karnataka, Tarapur Atomic Power Plant, Maharashtra, Kakrapar Atomic Power Station in Gujarat, and Rajasthan Atomic Power Plant in Kota, Rajasthan. These are the important atomic power stations in India. Now let's see yesterday's video question. Yesterday we discussed that regarding which of the following Supreme Court verdicts is either directly or indirectly related to right to life and liberty under Article 21. All these guidelines, all these judgments related to right to life and liberty. Now let's see today's video question. Which of the following countries border Black Sea? Which of the countries are sharing the border with Black Sea? Next main question. The Russia-Ukraine war is not only causing harm to the economies of these two countries but has wider implications for the present world order. So what are the implications of the Russia-Ukraine war on the world? This question is demanding. Next. Now we reach to the end of this video. Now let's revise. In this particular video, we discussed that Russia is claiming that Ukraine done attack on the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. In this context, we discussed about some of the international conventions and regulations regarding the nuclear safety and what is a nuclear disaster, what is the meaning of this radiation exposure, internal exposure, what are the regulations in India, and we also discussed about map pointing related to nuclear power stations in India. So this is the detailed analysis on this particular topic. I hope this video is useful in your preparation. Thanks for watching this video. Have a great day. Jai Hind.